Coming up next, Venezuela on the rack. Don't miss it.
Welcome back to Sputnik. The Venezuelan foreign minister was in London this week, meeting the British government and others like us, trying to counter the Syria war levels of fake news about his country.
When we met him for lunch at the ambassador's residence, he was accompanied by our next guest, whom we hadn't seen since that monsoon day back in Caracas in 2012, the day of President Hugo Chávez's final election victory, when we all danced together in the rain.
I knew him when he was a political activist in London, where he studied as a chevening scholar, no less. Since then, he's been a revolutionary fighter, a member of parliament, and now he's Venezuela's ambassador to India. He's Augusto Montiel, and he's with us now. Welcome, Your Excellency, as I must now call you, after a brief interlude of 30 years, calling you comrade. It's very, very good that you're here in London. No doubt you'll tell us the kind of diplomatic things that are happening, but start, if you will, with the decision of Trump to ban Venezuelans from traveling to the United States. What's that all about?
Well, it's about another aggression to Venezuela. It's about another attack to the sovereignty of Venezuela, to Venezuelans, to the constitutional and institutional architecture of Venezuela. And of course, it's an attack, it's a direct attack to the government of the most democratic government in the whole of Latin America. If we talk about terms of elections, if we talk about the access to clean water, to education, let's remember that Venezuela is the country that in the shortest time achieved the Millennium Goals that were supposed to be completed in 15 years. They were completed in only 9, certified by the United Nations. So 100% literacy, the highest rate of education enrollment in the region, the highest level of human development in the region, still now after almost 5 years of economic and financial blockade and attacks by, unfortunately, the government of the United States and several other factors in the oligarchical mainframe of Latin America.
And that means, in fact, this all started under the darling of the liberals, Barack Obama.
It was. In 2014, Obama signed a decree stating that Venezuela was a menace, a threat to the security of the United States. That was in 2014. And now President Trump in 2017 has again extended that decree, which was, let's remember, a decree that was also approved previous to the invasion of Iraq, previous to the invasion of Libya, previous to the invasion, all these terrorist attacks on Syria. Exactly the same has happened in Venezuela. But what the world doesn't know, because most international corporate press agencies do not, news agencies do not show or give information about the elections in Venezuela. In 3 weeks' time, on the 15th of October, there will be a national election in Venezuela. We will be electing 23 governors. And the opposition in Venezuela, all of the parties of the opposition have put forward their candidates. And the government has put forward their candidates. So there is, in fact, right now, an official electoral campaign in Venezuela. So it's all a big lie.
Quite a dictatorship then, huh?
About dictatorship, please, come on. Dictatorships in Venezuela or human rights violators. In Venezuela, indigenous people, gays, women, children, all have their constitutional rights well framed and well expressed.
Yeah.
Look, Gayatri and I know almost everything of which you speak, because we have seen it, thanks to you as our host, with our own eyes. The big question, therefore, is why is Venezuela's reputation so bad in the world? Why have the big news organizations apparently decided that discrediting Venezuela is so important? And why have those of us who love Venezuela not been better able to fight back?
Well, there is one specific geostrategy element around the world: oil. And Venezuela is the largest oil reserve in the world, not only in the American continent, not only in the southern continents or subcontinents, in the whole globe. The largest oil reserve lies within and underneath Venezuelan soil. That is a geostrategic fact, and that is a fact of power. And in Venezuela, according to the constitution, the wealth provided by oil and the oil itself is or belongs to Venezuelans. It cannot be in the hands of anybody. Of course, in Venezuela, there are private multinational companies producing oil, but the majority of the assets in any of those companies, of course, must be Venezuelan. And whatever happens inside Venezuela is on the interest of Venezuelans and with the interest of cooperating with the rest of the world on the basis of United Nations Charter principles. And that is the most democratic element anywhere, anybody in the world can aspire. Would we have asked ourselves, would that be a reason why, for example, President Trump dismisses and violates these principles, discrediting the United Nations, calling the United Nations to stop representing democracy and representing plural processes around the world? What we are seeing here is a government in the United States and their corresponding financial and industrial and power elements, instruments, tools, and one of them is people's minds. So how do you control people's minds? Through the spreading of information, which in the case of Venezuela, what the international corporate news agencies have been talking about Venezuela is completely untrue. One thing, for example, they hide completely the support of the people of Venezuela to the government of Nicolas Maduro so as to make it look as if the government is in isolation. The government is an anti-popular government, and which is not true at all. 8.3 million people voted on the 30th of July, but that didn't appear anywhere, or in very few spaces of press, newspapers or televisions and so on. So they're trying to separate the government of President Maduro from the massive, great national support it still, and after 4 years of intense attacks, financial, against the currency, against economics. They have even tried now for 3 years, and they have been able to do it. They don't let the food stuff produced in Venezuela or imported to be distributed freely. They take it to our neighbor country, our sister country, Colombia. They put lorries, they carry lorries of currency, paper money, and they take it to Colombia, they take it to Brazil, so as to create destabilization, economic destabilization. They have tried every single... There have been, as you well know, as the whole world knows, in 2002, there was the first coup d'etat, violent coup d'etat, against President Maduro, against President Chavez, I'm sorry, and it was successful. They took him away for 3 days. Millions of people went out on the streets with the military, and they rescued President Chavez. But the government of the United States was the only government, the first government to salute, to greet the new dictator. And then
Mr. Blair's government briefly welcomed that coup, only to have to eat their words a couple of days later. Look, we could talk to you all night, but unfortunately, we've run out of time. Augusto Montiel, Your Excellency, Ambassador Extraordinaire, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
On the Sputnik. And now it's your turn to tell us what you think through the portals of social media. What's rattling, Gayatri?
Right, Syria, fake news of Syria. Ricardo Picasso says the UK action in Syria was David Cameron's vanity project. So desperate was he to be a war leader that he put it to a vote, not once, but twice.
Well, of course, it's not just David Cameron. We oughtn't to place all the responsibility on him. There was a significant number, more than 100, Labour MPs who supported Britain joining in the bombing of Syria, and British government from A to Z have supported the overthrow of the government in Syria, even though they knew for sure that the only beneficiary could be ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and people like them.
We don't learn from history, it seems. And Venezuela, how will this weekend's elections go? Scott Carr says, it's not who votes, it's who counts the votes. Ain't that right, George?
No, the Venezuelan Electoral Commission is universally recognized as free and impartial. Even the Venezuelan opposition accepts that. They have conducted their work in all the previous elections and plebiscites. And don't forget, for a dictatorship, Venezuela doesn't have half a lot of elections and plebiscites without any criticism of their impartiality at all. So whatever the result this weekend, you can be sure it's the actual result and not invented by anyone.
Well, that's all the time we've got for the tweets.
Which, alas, means that's the end of the show.
But you can stay in touch with us on social media, on Facebook, Sputnik on Russia Today, or on Twitter and Instagram, RT_Sputnik. It's goodbye from me, Gayatri.
And from me, George Galloway. It's been marvellous.